You're listening to One Family, What's God Doing? Where we explore what God is doing in YWAM locations in Virginia and beyond. We can't wait for you to hear what God is doing today. Welcome back to What's God Doing? If you've been with us for a while, you know that one thing that we love to do is share the stories of God at work. And in particular, we're exploring how God is working through YWAM, not just in Virginia, but throughout the world. We really believe that God invites us to share the stories that he's given us. And there's actually another ministry that is connected with what we are doing that we want to tell you about today. And that's the Where Did You See God podcast. Now, the Where Did You See God podcast has actually been going for over 6 years. It began in 2018. And the idea is that it is a authentic, accessible space to process who God is, who he's created us to be, and what that means for today. Now, whereas this podcast, What's God Doing, we try to keep it short so that you can listen to it on your commute or while you're doing dishes. The Where Did You See God podcast actually seeks to be longer so that there's no pressure for the person sharing to condense their story or to get to their point, but rather we want that space to be an actual spirit-led conversation. In fact, it's not even about being a podcast. It's not even about episodes. The episodes are just a likely byproduct. The main thing is that the conversation itself is a space where the Spirit can move, where God can work and reveal himself. And God has done that. God has revealed amazing things about himself through powerful stories of individuals throughout the world, through many contexts, through many experiences. And so there are currently 188 or so episodes of the Where Did You See God podcast, and we want to give you a taste of some of the more recent ones. Why is it that people are so resistant or so fearful to share these stories that God's given them?
One of the things is a fear of rejection. Mm-hmm. So if I come and share my vulnerability with others, well, maybe they might reject me. Maybe they might not talk to me anymore. Maybe they might look down upon me. I really had to come to a point where I really believed that God loved me. I mean, I really had to believe it. And I wonder how many believers are still just a little uncertain about that. Mm-hmm. They have some doubts about that. Why did God allow suffering in my life? Maybe they haven't worked it through, or they haven't come to peace that God knows what he's doing and he loves us. And so I think there's questions of suffering, there's confusion about what God's doing in my life. So I think maybe people feel like their testimony isn't finished. But our life is a process. We're being sanctified throughout our lives, and that's part of the testimony.
And that night, I'm sitting on the bed. My husband has a blowout on the highway coming up. Everything that could go wrong that night went wrong. But I know I realized that there's nothing I can do. In this moment, I'm just going to trust that it's going to be okay. And no matter what happens tomorrow, we're going to work it out. I believe he has filled me with joy, and I keep joy in my heart. No matter what happens, I think that we are changed when we understand that. The next morning, only God, really, everything worked out. Before noon the next morning, the people got out, the police came. It was the craziest thing. And so none of that was me, none of it. And I know that.
God brought me, right? But he put people in my path that changed my trajectory. He was absolutely there. He saw every bit of it. And I can tell you, it was hard living in an abusive environment, a physically abusive environment. And there's so many mentors and just people who have helped me get from A to B. I almost failed 10th grade. There is a plethora of teachers at the Kiski School who, made and molded me and shaped me into a professional person who could tackle college and his career. But God put those people in my life, and God put me in that school. And I honestly believe that had I not have had the childhood that I did, I wouldn't be able to help the people that I do. So I'll take it, Paul. I'll take it. And I'm not living for this world. I'm just trying to do good while I'm in it.
What would Jesus see? We used to say, what would Jesus do? But I say, what would Jesus see? How would Jesus love that person?
Yeah.
And then be honest with your answers.
Yeah. Well, I like that designation there of what would Jesus see even prior to what would Jesus do, because sometimes we think we know what Jesus would do and we're way off because we haven't seen what Jesus sees. The disciples did this often. There are many times that they made a decision based on what they thought Jesus' mission was, and it was the complete opposite.
Paul says in 1 Corinthians 2:16, we have the mind of Christ. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't always act like it. He doesn't say that in future tense. Present tense, we have the mind of Christ. So that means we have the ability, the capacity to love the way Jesus did, but we're afraid to.
The first time I ever had deliverance was I was doing mall evangelism with a friend, and the lady who had kind of organized our group, she just starts sharing a little bit about her testimony and how, a few years back she found freedom through deliverance. Now I need to ask her, like, how did you get that? Like, that is what I've been looking for. And she was like, I actually do deliverance in my van. And she was a mom. She had her 2 boys there. Like, it wasn't as weird as it sounds.
Like windowless white van, which says deliverance on the side.
Right. But I'm like, the first time I ever received deliverance was in a stranger's van.
I had gotten into a very close journey that, the more the Bible says, draw near to God and he draws near to you. So while I was thinking I'm the one to draw near to him and to seek him, I did not know that the truth is when we take that step, he actually takes 5 of them, just like the prodigal son and the father. I realized, wow, so he's so close. He would reveal himself to me in a very interesting way. It was really encouraging me to give myself more to him. And at a season when I had made a conscious decision and a prayer to him, and I said, Lord, I don't want anything else, just you. So technically what I was doing was to surrender all my expectations and whatever desires that I had put before him as a petition at that time. And the funny thing is, I did not know that he had already answered my prayer.
God is writing stories in the lives of people all around you, and he wants you to hear them. And God is writing a story in your life as well. And if you ever want to share that story, we want to create an authentic, accessible space for you to be able to do so. So just let us know. But in the meantime, explore those stories, listen for those stories, and then ask yourself, where did you see God? So we want to thank you for being a part of our story and for journeying with us as we together as one family explore what it means to know God and make him known. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of One Family, What's God Doing? If you'd like to learn more about what God's doing in Virginia, visit us at YWAMVA.org and join us next week for more stories of God at work.